Welcome to the Seahawks Draft Blog live stream instant reaction podcast. Rob Staten, Adam Nathan, Robbie Williams with you here to discuss this one. What a win. I can genuinely say I was absolutely overjoyed watching that for a number of reasons. It was an absolute pleasure to be able to do the national broadcast in the UK of the Seahawks Chargers game and to talk about such a comprehensive Seahawks win. It was even better to be co-hosting with a massive 49ers fan throughout that entire broadcast there. Fantastic night for the Seahawks, a great win. And, fellas, for me, I've ever to see green shoots with this team, some green shoots, some positivity with this team, and to see it moving in the right direction. And tonight, I feel like we got that. We've got a team performance where the defense has finally got its act together to complement the offense. It's not Geno Smith's best night, but it doesn't matter because he did enough. Kenneth Walker was absolutely fantastic. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about him. This rookie class just goes from strength to strength. And of course, people are going to talk about the cornerbacks and Ken Walker, but they had Khalil Mack against those two offensive tackles and a decent pass rush, and they kept Geno pretty much clean for most of the night. I know there was a couple of sacks in there, but generally speaking, a really good, positive performance by the Seattle Seahawks. We'll talk about what it means. We'll talk about everything that's good about this game. We'll have to talk about DK Metcalf as soon as we get some news on what his injury is. But Robbie, what did you make of that tonight?
Yeah, overall, just this team, if anything, they're fun to watch. I think at the beginning of the year, I would have never predicted this game to be a win. So, overall, they're just great to watch. It's been really exciting. We kind of talked just a little bit about it, but it's fun seeing a pissed off Geno Smith. It's fun seeing a pissed off Jason Myers. I don't know what was that all about, but just seeing this team get fired up, and then the rookie class just looks like they're leading the way and setting the tone for a future, kind of setting the foundation for a really good future Seahawks team. And I'm really excited about it. It was fun to watch today. Really good time. Just right. I was a little nervous when they got back in. It was 17-14 or whatever. But man, how fun. It was fun.
Yeah, really fun game. And Adam, what did you make of that tonight?
Obviously, hugely positive to see them. Smash a team really that others have picked for the Super Bowl in some quarters this season. But I think if there's one thing I took from that, it was just general team speed looked the best it's been for 3 or 4 years, maybe. Every time the Chargers were making a catch, it was being contested by 1 or 2 players. If Eckler was running, Eckler's always going to get his. He's a great player, but there were 2 or 3 guys around him the whole time. Kenneth Walker, Marquise Goodwin, just the general speed everywhere was great. And there was something quite, once DK went down, he's obviously such a recognizable body out there, but it was amazing how the ball was just being distributed around. It could have been Dallas, it could have been Walker, it could have been Goodwin, it could have been Eskridge. It was just very methodical, very organized, and it just looked like a proper team performance that they looked as well coached as they have done for 3 or 4 years, I thought, today.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was a very good performance. Super chat away if you want a question answering, or if you want to make a statement, that we will come to it straight away. There is now a super thanks feature on YouTube as well. If you want to send in a super thanks, there's the little heart logo underneath the video, which I'm led to believe is a super thanks button. So if you want to check that out, you can do. Super chats are what we go to. I can see. I'm already seeing it in the comments, though. Be positive, people. I'm seeing somebody there complaining about all the people who were crying about taking Kenneth Walker, and certainly none of us fit into that description. We all know who those people are in Seahawks Twitter, but I don't think you need to crow about stuff like that. I think just enjoy the win. Neither do we need to get into too much about who was right or wrong about anything. Just enjoy what was a really entertaining game of Seahawks football tonight, and an unexpected victory. A really good performance. And I'm seeing here Curtis has put in, I'm going to share this message from Curtis because it's about DK Metcalf. DK came down on knee in an odd way. X-rays showed nothing. Wait and see. Let's just jump to that before we get it. I want to talk about Tariq Woolen because I thought that was his best game. I don't know whether it'll prove to be that in the gradings and everything like that. And I know he didn't have an interception, but I thought that was his best game. But on DK, It was most unusual that he went off and everybody assumed it was another toilet break. So he was kind of laughing his head off and he was heading on the cart. And then all of a sudden they just said he's out with a knee injury. And that was really worrying because it was just so sudden. There was no questionable. It was just he's out with a knee injury. So that is, and Pete Carroll is apparently saying, C-Mode's posted another message here, has said that DK Metcalf needs to get an MRI before they know the extent of his knee injury. The fact that he hasn't just come out afterwards and gone, it's bad, or it's an ACL, Robbie, is at least a little bit encouraging, I would suggest.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's encouraging for sure. I mean, and you know, he was carted off saying he was fine. When it came out and said that he was, you know, not coming back, I was a little surprised. The thing is, though, I think a couple people were posting kind of in your blog too, Rob, that you know, when Sherman went down with a knee injury, kind of the same thing. He was saying he was fine, and I'm no NFL player, but listen, I tore my ACL playing football, and I kid you not, it was in the first quarter, and by halftime I was ready to play again. I felt fine. I literally felt fine. I felt like I could play. It wasn't until the next day where I had a real cool gangster lean as I was walking, you know, uh, and then it swelled up like crazy after about 3 days. But sometimes some people handle it differently. But the fact that he's come out and said that, you know, and it's not an ACL, I think that's good. Maybe it's just a bad strain or something. But I think the MRI will definitely give more to see there.
Yeah. I think the fact that it says the X-rays showed nothing is perhaps why I'm jumping to the conclusion that that's good news. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not a medical expert. I don't know what an X-ray would show, whether an X-ray would show there's a tear, a ligament tear or anything like that, or any structural damage. I'm not sure. But fingers crossed that DK Metcalf is going to be okay. We have some super chats here. The Snail says, how's the wide receiver class looking for the upcoming draft? I want to come back to that because I think that's a topic worth digging into, because I think they could look in that area even, you know, regardless of any of this injury talk that we're talking about here. I'll come back to that, Snell. Remind me, send me another message if we don't jump straight back into it at the end. Ben says, Ken Walker truly blew me out of the water. I think he did everybody today. Fantastic. What we've got to remember here is he did that every week at Michigan State last year. He was absolutely fantastic. And we've said it in a previous stream. Look what's happened to Michigan State since they lost Ken Walker. He carried that team on his back. And it's those explosive, exciting runs where he just gets a little bit of space and you think he's gone. He's going to run. As soon as he got rounded the corner for that long touchdown, that 74-yard touchdown, you knew he was going to score. Fantastic. And a superstar in the making there. Let's hope he can stay healthy. And David says, you guys think this team could make NFC playoff noise, starting to look legit? Well, let's go to that then, Adam, because there's no reason why you can't have that conversation right now when teams that you expect to be really good, like the Green Bay Packers, are 3-4. Tom Brady and the Bucs are 3-4. The Eagles are the only unbeaten team left, and they're, you know, for me, they're the kind of team that you could easily imagine losing the first round of the first playoff game they play. They're not a spectacular team. They're just pretty well organized and in form. NFC West doesn't look as good as everybody thought. The Rams look a spent force. I mean, look, making some noise in the playoffs is a little bit different than actually getting there. What I would say right now is if their Seahawks play like that, more often than not, they'll be in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I think every time we've had a win so far, there's been a little bit of the, yeah, but, you know, this happened and we probably need to see it against someone else. And, well, you know, the emotion of the Denver game and, you know, well, they gave up loads of points against Detroit. And then last week, Kyler Murray. I feel like today, albeit against the Chargers that, you know, without Keenan Allen, really, in all respects, you know, another game where we've been fortunate to play against a team without their best receiver. But it's more and more difficult to find any caveats like about how this team are playing at the minute. I feel if they play like that every week, they're going to win more games than they lose by a wide margin. I can't think of anything they did today that wasn't at least good. The secondary looked tight. You know, the linebackers played okay. The pass rush maybe not quite as destructive as it was last week, but they were certainly bothering Herbert quite a lot. Offensive line was good from my untrained eye. Obviously, the running backs, Gino did well. Wide receivers were getting involved. All the tight ends got involved. I don't know what. Look, yeah, maybe not. They're not a Super Bowl winning team. I wouldn't have thought. I can't even believe I'm even putting that into the conversation, given where we were. So yeah, let's rule that one out. But in terms of given that there's nothing really in the NFC that you're looking at thinking, well, that's unbeatable. Certainly they should be looking at the playoffs now. I think it's perfectly reasonable for goalposts to change during the season. If they don't, then you're just kind of trying to stick too true to original takes, and then it becomes the I was right, you was wrong kind of thing. No, like move your goalposts, and I think it's perfectly fair. We've seen nearly half of the season now. I think it's perfectly acceptable to think this team could go and do something in the playoffs, and part of that is due to the strength or otherwise of the conference, but otherwise it's fair play to them. They're playing really, really well.
Yeah, and then look, you're right. Things change. There's absolutely no way you could watch the defense play the way it did in Detroit or New Orleans and have any confidence that this team was going to make the playoffs. There was no way you could watch that game in San Francisco or Santa Clara, wherever they play, and say, yeah, this team's got a chance of the playoffs. Playing like they did today and to a lesser extent last week against Arizona, yeah, they can do. And now the key is to follow this up. If they keep playing this way, then I'm not going to be being negative about it. You're not going to be negative about it, Adam. You're not going to be negative about it, Robbie. Nobody is. Everyone's just going to jump on board. We all want to see the Seahawks do well. That was a really good performance today. Play like that, and they're going to turn a lot of people into believers. And Robbie, I don't think that the Seahawks are in any shape or form a Super Bowl contender. But this NFC is not very good. It's just not a very good conference across the board, which means that there are going to be opportunities for teams that people didn't expect to have opportunities at the start of the year to come on. I mean, look, who thought the Rams would look as bad as they've looked so far? The Niners have just made a huge trade to F those picks and do all of that. And look where they're at. Look where they're at. They're 3-4. They've got a whole bunch of injuries and they're relying on Jimmy Garoppolo again. The Bucs are struggling. The Packers are struggling. There are teams in that NFC South who are, the leading team in the NFC South right now has a losing record. It's a completely wide open conference, and there's no reason why the Seahawks. I mean, if they win the division, Robbie, they're going to be in the playoffs anyway, and they'll have a home game to look forward to. I mean, but can you build on this? Can you stay healthy? Can you build on this? That's going to be the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, that definitely. I mean, if you look at the point, we still have more points scored against us than we've scored, right? I mean, so that means the defense still has some problems. I would like to see the defense, play a little better still and be a little more consistent and this is a weird NFL season. I mean, you're talking about all these teams that you predicted to be really good. I mean, you got the Giants who are all of a sudden really good, and the Jets got a win today, and they look pretty decent. Like just teams that you thought were going to be pure crap are actually playing pretty decent ball. So it's just a odd season, and I always, and I say it a lot, but I like to say if you get into the dance, you got a chance. And so if you can get in, anything can happen. Lightning can strike, and maybe it's just maybe Geno catches fire and they just ride that wave. I don't know, but really it comes down to the defense for me. I think the offense we've seen has been incredibly impressive. Throughout most of the season, Geno's been incredible, way more than we expected, and I think the rise of K9 is going to take over. I think he's one of the guys that we were really excited about after the draft, and I'm excited to see him get an opportunity to play, and if they can ride that pony as long as they can. If the defense can start playing well, I think this could be something really fun to watch.
Yeah, I have only one moan from today, really, and I'm going to get it out of the way now, so we've kind of done it. Right. On what planet is DS Gridge in the backfield at 17 points to 7 a good idea? When you need to get back momentum and you're going to put your 5'9", 190-pound wide receiver in the backfield there when you've got Kenneth Walker. That was as bad as the DJ Dallas Wildcat nonsense in San Francisco, but that is the only moan that I've got. Apart from that, I want to go back to Tariq Woolen because I said I thought it was his best game, and I know he didn't have the interception. His run of interceptions is over now, but the way he was just so tight in coverage, even when receptions were made, it seemed like he was right. It's a great throw. It's a great play by the receiver to beat him in that situation. It looks to me like his confidence is growing. He's really starting to believe in himself. He's trusting, the experience that he's got already this season. And he looks like a top cornerback. He looks like a fantastic player. It's so exciting to watch the Seahawks draft somebody, Adam, in day 3 of the draft, which is what we came to expect quite frequently when the Pete Carroll and John Schneider era began. But to see them land on a player as good as this again in the 5th round is a return to form for them in terms of drafting and development. And it's exciting for us to see a player who has got so much potential to be something really, really good at this level.
Going into the season, I think a lot of people said, well, they can't catch lightning in a bottle twice. I think even Cliff Averill said that about how trying to capitalize on some of the drafts they had, it's impossible to do it again. Well, this is literally like catching lightning in a bottle twice. Similar kind of position to Richard Sherman, similar playing style. And it's remarkable. The thing I find interesting, and I don't know what you guys, well, Rob, you'll know about Robbie as well, but it's interesting that I've heard 3 or 4 guys in the team freely say that like Willem doesn't really know what he's doing. And I find it quite interesting that they would actually say that in a league that's so guarded about, how you evaluate and what you're going to put on tape. To say that someone doesn't know what they're doing is quite a bold statement, and he's embraced it himself. I think Willem, I've heard him a few times on the radio say something along those lines. I guess the question is, like, to what extent do you want to teach him what to do? Or do you kind of just want to say, well, look, your instincts must be phenomenal. Is there a point where you can sort of teach to the degree that you can actually take away some of the things that he does so instinctively brilliantly that make him such an exciting prospect?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's exciting, but it's the whole class, Robbie. The whole draft class. I mean, obviously, the exception of like Derek Young and Bo Melton, and the pass rusher whose name I've completely forgotten because I've been on the radio for the last feels like 5 hours. But apart from that, like I mentioned earlier, the 2 tackles continue to do a good job. I still think Charles Cross has got a bit of a way to go. I think that he is not playing as well as perhaps some people think. And he needs to get stronger and he needs to work out his technique. But look, give him time because he's in his rookie year, and he could probably do with a year in a pro weight training program and get all the dietary stuff that he needs. But Abe Lucas just looks like he was born to play in the NFL. Fantastic. There was one sack which happened on the right side, and I paid particularly close attention to that because I wanted to see if it was Abe Lucas who gave it up. No, Abe Lucas had bossed this guy 5 yards downfield. And I think it was a pulling guard who'd come across, and it may have been Phil Haynes who just moved out to the outside, and it looked like it was given up from the tackle position, but it wasn't. It was the guard who'd moved over. Abe Lucas just dominated his guy, drove him off the line, and just incredibly impressive yet again, Abe Lucas. And then Boya Mafe is getting involved. We're not seeing great pass rush from him so far, but you see him on the field. A lot more than Darrell Taylor. You see him on the field, it feels. So that he's obviously doing something right there that they trust him to do that. And then obviously Kenneth Walker with these fantastic runs, Robbie. We talked about it a lot in the build-up to the draft. It was a foundational draft. I remember speaking to Scott McLuhan, and he described it. It's a deep draft. It's how you use this draft to build a foundation. And that's thankfully what the Seahawks have done. And I hope they continue this, Robbie. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the draft before the end finishes, but the next draft, keep that in mind. What worked in 2022? You built up your trenches. You brought in key players at key positions, and shot for upside in day 3 with the Woolens. And you've brought in good players. And can they do that again? Don't get into bad habits again next year. Because there's an opportunity. I've already found a lot of players that I like in this draft. They're not all going to be there in the first round. They're going to be sort of 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and beyond. Can you do this again next year to give yourself another lift forward to take yourself into contention in 2023? Because look, they're in a good place. Seems like they're in a good place right now, but they can be even better with a great draft class, courtesy of the Denver Broncos next year.
Well, I mean, that's a great point right there. Thank you, Denver. I mean, their pick is looking great. I mean, if you would have told me at the beginning of the season, Denver would have been picked like at this time, Seattle's 23rd in the draft and Denver's at 6. I thought you would have had them reversed. But listen, building the foundation from this draft was key, and you're seeing it pay dividends already. It's already been super impressive having, our young players, lead the way and lead the charge and carry the team almost. And it's crazy just to see we're only like 6 games in, and it's like they're 7 games in, and they're playing so well, and they just keep like playing better and better every week. So yeah, I mean, this upcoming draft just huge potential to continue to build on that. This is my only honestly fear right now. I just want the trade deadline to come and go. I want to get past the trade deadline so I don't have to worry about some stupid thing popping up on my phone, a news feed about how John Snyder and the Seahawks have traded draft picks for someone that we don't really want to do, like that we don't want. So I want to get past the trade deadline. Then I'll be really happy with the draft coming forward.
You see, I mean, I'm completely agree with you, Robbie. If they can get if they can get some value, if they can get a Quandre Diggs style trade or a Marshawn Lynch trade or a Chris Clemens style trade, I'm happy with that. But no big trades. I don't think they're going to anywhere. I think they're being
just
patient.
hold on to those number ones. That's what I want to see. Don't
on to the 2s. Hold on to your 3. For me, it would be if it's a 5th and a 6th or something like that. To get a player, fine, but don't give away the high picks. Would be my advice. And look, they don't have that much money to play with, as we've talked about for next year. So if you go and get a Roquan Smith or I don't know, Daron Payne or something like that, then you're handcuffed to paying them. And you've been in this situation with Jamal Adams where you back yourself into a corner and then you have even less money. I mean, listen, I'm quite happy if Roquan Smith isn't going to make free agency because the Bears have got like $100 million to spend next year, so they'll franchise him. But Daron Payne might make it to free agency. I'd be interested in him, but I'm interested in him on the open market, not via trade now to go and chase anything. There's just no need for that. So yeah, keep your picks. I don't think they will. I think they will keep their picks. A couple of other things I wanted to mention about this game. The refs? Like, I feel like the refs just got unnecessarily involved in this one. The one that really pissed me off, though, was the false start on Austin Blythe. What the heck was that all about? Like, you are allowed to move your head before a snap as the center. It was a clear offside. It should have been an offside flag against the Chargers. That really annoyed me. But it felt like the first quarter went on forever because there was flag after flag after flag. Just Adam, why can't these refs just let the players play? I will happily, if you do it for both teams, there's a bit of hand fighting on a route, don't throw defensive pass interference, don't throw offensive flag for offensive pass interference. Let them go for a bit. If you're consistent with both teams, let them play. I think every NFL fan will agree with that. We do not want to see a flag fest in the NFL any time. We don't want any game ruined by the refs.
The daftest thing about all of it is that the only people in the world that can't see they've got it wrong are the refs themselves, because we're watching these decisions happen anyway. And in the time it takes them to reset for the Austin Blythe one, for example, we've all seen that it's not a penalty. It's tricky to say re-referee games from New York or whatever, but can they not just call in and say, you might want to pick that one up? That wasn't a full stop. Would it be that difficult? It seems that it's a sport that perfectly lends itself to that sort of intervention from someone that's just saying, "Look, sorry guys, you might have. I know what you thought you saw, but you actually didn't." It's bizarre that there's so many camera angles for all this stuff, and yet the people that don't get the benefit of that are the refs themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to mention from my notes is I don't know because we've got another super chat I want to get to here, and it's an interesting question, but I don't know which bit I enjoyed most, which was whether it was Geno Smith being really pissed off on the sideline and Pete Carroll giving him the whole. I don't know what that does. That mean calm down in America? I don't know, but I loved that. Well, I liked seeing Geno, pissed and angry. And then when they got the conversion and he's giving it to the sideline, I enjoyed that. But I don't know if I enjoyed that more than Ken Walker trying to fight Khalil Mack. I thought that was really good as well, because Ken Walker's just such a softly spoken guy. Seems like a really nice guy. And then he's trying to fight with Khalil Mack. I thought it was brilliant. So I enjoyed both of those. We've got a super chat from Mr. 05 Chuck, which says, would you pay Geno Smith $23 million for 3 years and draft best player available? So this is going to increasingly become the topic in Seattle, guys. This is what people are going to start talking about. Extending Geno Smith. And I had this question on Twitter from Brandon Adams, who I've got a lot of time for. He sent me this on Twitter. He said, Gino is 32 and therefore not a likely long-term solution. But should a man in his position even be playing this well in the first place? Having sat for a while and conserved his body, could he play for a while still at a high level? And this is the dilemma. And I've kind of thought a little bit about this. I've done a couple of streams on this. We've talked about this. For me, there's two things that are really important. First of all, you've got to let Geno Smith play out this year. You don't extend him now because you're extending him at the worst bargaining position. You are extending him when he's got all the leverage. I'm playing well. I'm out of contract after this year. Pay me. I expect a big contract. It'd be the worst time to go and negotiate with him. You've got to let him get to the end of this year. You've got to let his agent go and talk to all the other teams at the combine. And then you don't have to wait for the market to officially open. You will know after the combine what other teams are willing to offer Geno Smith, and you'll be able to make him an offer and retain him if you so wish. Now, there are so many quarterbacks who are like Geno Smith who are out of contract at the end of this year. I don't think his contract's going to be as expensive. I don't think you're going to need to pay him $23 million. I know that he's playing well, but the idea of somebody going, Geno Smith's 33, he's had one good year with the Seahawks, I'm going to give him a $23 million a year contract over 3 years, to me is a little bit fanciful. I think that perhaps the market will say, because he's not playing quite as well as he was at the start of the year. Still playing very well. Not saying he's playing badly, but he's not quite what he was at the start, which was flawless, apart from the Niners game. So I think you get to the market, you let the league tell you how much Geno Smith is worth. And then the other thing you have to do, in my opinion, is you have to draft somebody as early as possible to be the development option. So that if Geno Smith regresses next year, having been paid, you've got somebody who you're working on. If you want to replace him after next year, you can do. You've got to have that guy in the chamber. You can't just go, right, Geno Smith, that's it. He's the quarterback for 3 years. We're going to draft other positions and hope that Geno Smith's going to win you a Super Bowl. You have to bring somebody in, especially in a quarterback draft like this, in my opinion. You don't draft that guy as early as possible. If you sit in behind Geno Smith, that's the perfect solution. It's what the Chiefs did with Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. Go and get your Patrick Mahomes. Make Geno Smith your Alex Smith, Robbie. That is what I think they need to do. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think there's no other way around it. I mean, you have to draft a guy this year, bring him in, and paying Geno, you got to let him test the market. I mean, paying him now, he has all the leverage, right? And it feels a little desperate to do it now. So I think you wait till the end of the season, let him test the market and see what happens. I don't think there's any reason you have to pay him right now. None. Especially when you do have Drew Lock there, and Pete did come out and say, we have 2 number ones. So you have an opportunity to negotiate against Geno later on. Well, we still have Drew. I think there's an opportunity to hold off a little bit and not overpay.
Yeah, and without wanting to go over old ground too much, if you give him $23 million a year, they've got $32 million effective cap space next year. So unless you want most of that to go on Geno Smith and you not have any money to improve your team, then you backload it. Okay, so if it's $23 million a year, let's say you give him a cap hit of $12 million next year, do you really want Geno Smith having a $35 million cap hit in 2024? That's the kind of thing you have to think of. I think it'd almost be better just getting to the end of the year, seeing what everyone's willing to offer him. I suspect it'll be short-term offers for other teams anyway, because there's going to be a bit of skepticism there about a 33-year-old Geno Smith. Get him for 1 year. And if he doubles his money next year, then fine. But that's kind of what I'd be doing. And if it gets to sort of 23, 25, $30 million, I'm being prepared to walk away there. One thing that Geno Smith's got to remember here, and I'm sure the Seahawks will stress this, the Seahawks are good for him as much as they're good for the Seahawks. He's got a good thing going here. So he doesn't want to, if he can go to another team and earn a bit more money, if I was him, I'd be looking to stay here. And if there's only a couple $1 million in it, well, I think that'd be the best thing for him. But I do think you've got to draft someone, Adam, because I know what people are going to start saying now, because it is a deep quarterback draft. I see it every week. People say, they throw these names out. They throw these guys out who are going to be day 3 picks at quarterback because they get a lot of publicity in the media. Just draft one of them. People love Hendon Hooker. He's a half-field read quarterback playing in the system that makes life as easy as possible for him. He's got a fantastic right tackle. He's got amazing receivers to throw to. He might work out. I personally wouldn't take him until round 3-4 kind of range. I don't think he is necessarily somebody like you could take a chance on him, someone like him developing. Can not do a bit better than that though. And if the Broncos are going to give you, like they've got you the number 6 overall pick right now, but it could easily get worse than that. They've got to go to London, and Brett Ripien might be starting next week, and they're playing the Jags, who are a lot better than people think. If you're going to end up with a top 5 pick, courtesy of Russell Wilson and the Broncos, wouldn't it be the best thing possible to say, right, we're not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. We're going to get that quarterback, re-sign Geno, and just let them sit, develop, learn, prepare to be the starter in the future, because you are going to need a long-term answer.
Yeah, I think if it's not going to be Will Levis, you've pretty much got me sold on Richardson as that sort of backup guy to a veteran. I mean, back on Geno, this is a question that can only be answered by hunch, really. But he's been in the league for 10 years, so give or take 300 teams have had the opportunity to have him as a starting quarterback for them, and no one's taken the opportunity to do that. Is that just the biggest miss of all time in scouting? Or, and again, this is just a hunch, or how much of this do you think is just that we've experienced the Russell Wilson offense for such a long time that seeing someone that is just kind of playing with a straight bat and on time and doing what the coaches want? I mean, could Marcus Mariota have done this for the Seahawks this year, do you think? Or is it that Geno himself is particularly he is that special and everyone's just whiffed on him completely? I mean, it's not a question that you can answer with anything apart from just your gut instinct. But for a league that does so much studying and checking and evaluating, it seems bizarre to me that Geno is this unicorn guy that necessarily needs to be paid that much, as opposed to bring someone else in that is not a bust. So you can't just bring in any old idiot. If you can bring in a player on that level, could anyone else be doing this sort of thing?
It's a great question. It really makes you think. I think the thing with Geno Smith is it's a weird sort of mix of things that have enabled him to have this success. I think he looks as confident. Like, confidence and belief is a big thing in professional sports, especially when you've got to be the guy. And to me, Geno Smith looks just far more confident in his own skin, comfortable in his own skin than the Marcus Mariotas and these other players, that you, even like a Kirk Cousins, frankly, he just sort of carries himself with this air of, yeah, do you know what? I belong. And I think almost he's convinced himself. So when he gets out there, the performance matches the confidence level. I think physically he is showing that he's got a stronger arm than some of these guys. He's making some really good throws. And also, I think you have to give, look, and as someone who has been a really fierce critic of Pete Carroll, and, I reserve the right to have had those opinions. I don't think I've been proven completely wrong because the defense has had a couple of good games. But I think you do have to give him credit for the way that he has helped, first of all, for having the faith in Geno Smith, and then sort of almost helping him have that confidence that he can be the guy, and keeping that faith with him when many other people would have had them going and trading for a Jimmy Garoppolo or a Baker Mayfield. I mean, I personally was never on that train. I was happy to just roll with Geno Smith or Drew Lock. But, a lot of other people would have gone. I mean, look at the Carolina Panthers, for example. They traded a second-round pick for Sam Darnold. They then go and trade for Baker Mayfield. They have made those kind of moves, whereas the Seahawks said, no, we're going to give these two guys a chance and we're going to roll with it. And I think all of that has combined to create this great situation. And I'm not sure that Marcus Mariota's got that self-confidence, or that would have necessarily come in here and sort of played, almost like balls to the wall. I'm going to go for this. And I think Geno Smith sort of feels almost as maybe there's an air of desperation, not so much desperation, but this is my chance. I've got to take this now. I've been given an opportunity, and I think you've got to give him great credit. And like I said, there was a few throws today that he could have. He had an interception. He could have had one or two others. He was quite close to one in particular. Those little signs of old Geno have been there in the last couple of weeks. But at the same time, there are some throws that I never expected him to make, Robbie, that he is making this year. And you've just got to doff your cap to him and say, fair play.
Yeah, 100%. I would be the first to admit that I was totally wrong on Geno Smith. I thought I didn't want him to start. I wanted Drew Lock to start. I thought for sure he'd come in and Lock would be the starter by the bye, if not sooner. And, here he is. He's making some incredible throws. My only real complaint about him so far is just I want him to step up in the pocket a little bit more. There's opportunities for him to step in the pocket and make it and deliver a pass. Other than that, I have no other complaints. He's throwing some absolute dimes out there that I would have never expected him to throw, and it's really fun to watch. And I'm happy to eat crow on this one because it's really fun to watch. But I'm also tempering my expectations with Geno Smith. Like, I still want to draft our quarterback for the future. You know, we've seen a handful of games, and I'm almost waiting for that moment, you know, where the other shoe drops and the real Geno Smith kind of shows up. You know what I mean? I'm almost waiting for that to happen. Is this the game we see Geno? But so far, every game he's been fairly impressive. So yeah, tip my cap to him, and well done, and keep it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Shane Waldron is making me more of a believer in Shane Waldron, Adam. I mean, after last year, you kind of think this guy's a phony. You know, he's just he's the McVay disciple that McVay wasn't asked about keeping, and yet he's, as we see this year, you know, it's so often, and I don't think Darrell Bevell ever really got any credit whatsoever for Russell Wilson coming in as a rookie and playing quite well, or the offense functioning. You know, he was just kind of like a figure of fun, really, in Seattle. But, you know, perhaps he did deserve a bit of credit for a rookie quarterback starting, and, you know, Marshawn Lynch succeeding and everything sort of working together. I mean, not loads of credit, but just some that he never got. And I think with Shane Waldron now, you look at it and think, yeah, do you know what? Those rookie tackles, fair play to him and Andy Dickerson for getting that right, you know, for putting them in a position to succeed. Look at what we're doing with the running game now. Geno Smith's working. The route concepts seem a little bit better. It feels like we're actually watching a Rams-style McVay offense this year. And yes, part of that is because Russell Wilson isn't there anymore. Somebody told me, I think it was about a year ago, that probably about 18 months ago, that the Shanahan disciple coaches wouldn't go anywhere near Russell Wilson because their offenses depend on, essentially, you drop back, I'm going to tell you what read to make, and then you just throw it to whatever, you know, the read dictates. So basically, they'll have two options. If they show you this, you go to there or there, and if they do this, you go to there and there. And that's how the Shanahan. It's quite simple, but it takes somebody with the discipline to execute it, which is why, you know, people like Matt Ryan have been MVP in that system because they can just sort of drop back and read and make the plays, and that's why they've liked Kirk Cousins. You know, they don't want and why they. A lot of people thought they were going to draft Mac Jones instead of Trey Lance because it was somebody who could just execute. And the thing about Russell Wilson is he was never going to be a quarterback who could drop back and make that read and execute. He wants to scramble. He wants to look downfield. He wants to do other things. And the McVay offense and the Shanahan offense are very, very similar. And I'm just thinking here that maybe, yeah, you know what? If there are some similarities and if the Shanahan disciples were never going to go near Russell Wilson, maybe the McVay ones wouldn't either. And now you've actually put a quarterback in who is prepared to just sit back. Okay, my read's this, so I'm going to throw it there. It functions as the offense is intended to function.
I think when people talk about all of the great players in any sport, whether it's a soccer player, tennis, cricketer, whatever, they all like the natural thing seems to be to suggest that they look like they have just a bit more time than the people they're playing against when things are going well. Like a great soccer player just looks like he's got half a second more. And watching this offense, like everything just looks a little bit slowed down in a good way. And, you know, Geno looks like he's got just a tick more time. Now, obviously, that's a product of offensive line, but it just looks organized. There's no scrambling around the line of scrimmage. Has there been a false start a delay of game all season? I can't recall. Like they just seem to be getting the play, getting to the line, looking what they're doing, executing the play, and it's just that it just looks like they have just a tick more time on everything they're doing. There's no panic. It's just organized, and it's great to watch. And I really think that if anything is transferable going forward, it's that there's an organization that we're just not used to seeing from a Seahawks offense.
Absolutely right on that. I mean, anyone who's watched Denver this year can see that the same issues with getting the snap and the playing in time and getting everything set up are there. And it has to be a Russell Wilson thing that, you know, and look, I am not somebody who is taking any enjoyment out of Russell Wilson's struggles. There's a whole bunch of Seahawks fans who decided they hate Russell Wilson now. And I'm not down with that. But it's clear that is an issue that's gone with him to Denver. And it's an issue that Seattle has left behind now with Geno Smith. So it's a good thing. And the Denver Broncos continue to struggle. Russell Wilson missed another game today with a hamstring injury, and the Broncos are 2-5. As we mentioned, they've got the 6th overall pick now. As things stand, the Seahawks Their native pick is all the way up at 23 now because the Seahawks are top of the NFC West and at the moment would qualify for the playoffs, Robbie.
It would actually be 22 though, right? Because the Dolphins forfeited their pick.
Correct. This is why you're here, Robbie, to correct me on things like this. Absolutely correct.
The data guy.
So the Tankathon should really get rid of Miami at 17. Yeah, it just says Miami forfeited in green. At least put forfeited in red. But yes, so they would have 22 because of Miami, who are playing right now against the Steelers. So, yeah, interesting times. I promised I would come back to that super chat about wide receivers. And I am interested in this because I have a long list. There's always receivers coming into the league now. It's strange that as the explosion in contracts for receivers has gone on and everybody's paying receivers now. More and more receivers come into the league every year that you feel like could have an impact. So I've got my board here, and it's so much easier to run through these things when you've got a horizontal board written out. And I will publish this in the next 2 to 4 weeks. I just want to keep adding names to it for now. So I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players in round 2. I've got Jalen Hyatt as a fringe first rounder, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players in round 3 and 2 in round 4. I think as early, you could easily make an argument for the Seahawks to take one of these guys in round 2, whether it's a Jalen Hyatt for his ability to separate at the last minute. That's so impressive. That's one thing that's why I've got him rated above everybody else, is that yes, he's fast, and yes, he's got some reasonable size. He's very lean, but he's got some size. It's that when the ball's in the air, he's got that extra gear just to separate at the last minute, just goes up and accelerates away from the defender and just creates that bit of separation. I think it's so impressive. Really like what he's showing. Quinton Johnson at TCU has got almost like a frame like Richard Sherman, but a receiver version of that. He's come on in the last few weeks, downfield threat, incredible athlete, will have a fantastic combine. Zay Flowers, diminutive. I'm not sure the Seahawks need another one of those guys who are smaller in stature, but just his change of direction is incredible. I don't know if either of you two have seen anything of Ole Miss this year, but Jonathan Mingo is a player that people have got to keep an eye on. He's not getting as much publicity as some of the others, but he had a really nice game again last night in the defeat to LSU. Big guy, quick. To me, he's somebody who's a dark horse to go a lot earlier than people think. He's an extremely good, agile, quick, big target. And I could just imagine him in Seattle as like a third option, who's a really dynamic third option, can get downfield, can really box out defenders. I really like Jonathan Mingo. And then you've got the obvious names, the Smith and Jigbers, Jordan Addison. I really like Raheem Jarrett as well. I watched a bit of him over the last few days. And a player at Maryland who is very, very impressive. And then you've got a few others. Bryce Ford Wheaton, I think, is a very impressive guy. A guy that I like Jake Bobo at UCLA. I mean, who doesn't want to draft a player called Jake Bobo? So I just think there's a lot of receivers in there. I promise I'll come back to it in the super chat. There is it's a good receiver class. There's some good options there. And with regards to, Adam was talking about Anthony Richardson a bit earlier. I think that will be the perfect situation for Seattle, to bring him in and to sit him, because he's a guy who needs a bit of time. He needs to learn. He needs some guidance. And I think it'd be the perfect situation because his upside is so high to give him a year or two in the NFL before unleashing him. I think that would be the best thing to do. And I think that'd be a great option, Robbie. But I'm telling you now, people are kind of writing him off because he's had a bit of an inconsistent start to the season, but I will not be surprised if he goes a lot higher than the media thinks.
Yeah, I mean, the only question mark really on him is whether or not he declares, right? I mean, I think at this point, who knows? I mean, he may want to come back and try it again and improve the stock a little bit more. But I mean, if he's already getting a first round grade, maybe he won't. I'm not really sure how that process is going to play out. I don't know, Rob, what you kind of think. I still really like Tyler Van Dyke. I know he got injured, and I know he's been up and down this season. But I think this is another guy that's it's the system that he's playing. I think he has all the intangibles you look for in a quarterback. Maybe we would be able to get that guy in kind of the second round if that's the case. But he's a guy that I feel like, the Senior Bowl and Combine will really help him a lot. He's a player that I still have eyes on that I really like. I mean, obviously Will Levis is the top top guy in this draft, and I think we all know that, and that's the guy we would prefer to have. But Anthony Richardson is a guy that you put in and allow to sit behind Geno Smith, like you said, for a year. And then for me, I still have a keen eye on Tyler Van Dyke. I just think there's something there about him that I really like as well.
Yeah, he had a very serious injury, as Robbie kind of touched on, and I think it was a shoulder injury. I've watched the game. And his parents were there at the tunnel when he came off, and there was a fear that was season ending. For me, I think he will probably transfer somewhere else. I'd love to see him go to Kentucky next year and replace Will Levis, playing a pro style offense. But if he does declare, who knows where we would go after what happened this year? If he does, and you can get him after the first round, then stash him and develop him. I think that would be a good choice. So I think he is an interesting option there. I think Levis will go number one. I find it interesting that people, like Bryce Young, I don't know if anybody saw the Alabama game yesterday. I thought that was a poor second half from Bryce Young, who's clearly not healthy with his shoulder. I don't think he played well at all last night. I know he had a couple of interesting scrambles. To me, a smaller, weaker-armed Russell Wilson. And look, I really like Bryce Young as a character. Great guy, talented, naturally gifted, very level-headed, very likable. I'm just not sure I want to go down that road personally. And I think a few teams might feel that way. And CJ Stroud has got all the talent in the world, but he has got to stop throwing into triple coverage. I've taken a screen grab. I wish I could show you right now. I took a screen grab of the game when I was watching it this morning of Ohio State's blowout win against Iowa. And they blow everybody out. It's great because they've got 1 million 5-star recruits and everyone's fantastic. And they play crap teams in the Big Ten. And then, I'm going to put this on the blog when I do my write-up. You see where he cons every single week. He throws it into triple coverage and has an interception, it seems. And you just think, what are you seeing to throw that pass? And this is the point I'm going to make in the article that I will just make very briefly here. It's all about transferable things. When you are doing a draft, you are projecting, what is this guy going to be at the next level? It's not what they are now. It's what they're going to be. When you watch Will Levis, you see the arm, you see the physicality, you see the traits, you see the pro-style offense, you see him succeeding behind a crap O-line. You say, that's NFL. He's in an NFL environment now. I can see this in the next level. What you're watching from CJ Stroud, what you're watching from Hendon Hook, that ain't transferable. So then there's much more of a projection based on that. What can they be? And just because a player is putting up lots of stats and doing well in college doesn't mean that when they get to the NFL and they have to play with a lot more pressure and they don't have the advantages of a half field read offense, and they don't have fantastic 5-star talent to throw to because the NFL is much more of a muddle, and you're not going to be drafted to play on an elite team straight away. These are the things you've got to think about. It's not just about, hey, stats, hey, this guy's playing well. It's about transferable skills, and that's part of the pressure with these quarterbacks.
And that's what happens a lot with Ohio State quarterbacks. I can't think of one Ohio State quarterback that has come in and dominated the NFL.
Yeah, they all have an issue getting through. But anyway, that's a good bit of draft talk. I'm going to have a big article. Again, Monday maybe. I'm off on Tuesday, so I might spend a bit more time. Because, obviously Monday is House of the Dragon Day in the Staten household. So I want to watch that when I get home from work. And then I'll decide whether I'm going to write up straight away or whether I'm going to do it on Tuesday, but there will be a big draft article coming out in the week. And it's just, again, so interesting, Adam, that the Broncos are as bad as they are. The Seahawks are somehow winning, and we're kind of sat here now wondering, what are the Seahawks going to get from the Denver Broncos? Could it be a top 5 pick? Could Russell Wilson essentially be Seattle's Jamal Adams?
It would certainly be nice to be on the right end of one of those deals, having perhaps sat through a few of them that haven't gone our way. I was wondering, this is a bit more of a general NFL draft thing, and something I was thinking about this week, and then weirdly Mike Florio tweeted about it just before we came on, which I'm not sure if that strengthens or devalues my point. I guess it depends on what you think of his show and him. But Bryce Young's like a millionaire already from the NIL. I think Will Levis has an NIL deal for $500,000. At what point are these players just going to say, do you know what, I'm not going to Houston? Like Bryce Young particularly, who's going to require clearly a coach who is going to match up to his skill set and want to devote the whole team around him. Levis perhaps less so because of his physical traits. But I mean, I'm not expecting it to happen this year. But at some point, Jim, there's going to be a point where people are going to look at Josh Rosen, for example, as a cautionary tale and saying, look, I'm not going to let myself get into a situation that could ruin my future earnings. This is probably a big old point to make at 5 to 2 in the morning. But it does fascinate me how, at some point, the power of these college players is going to outweigh the value of the draft for them, surely.
It's a great point, and I would imagine so. I was a bit surprised that Trevor Lawrence allowed himself to end up in Jacksonville, for example. I thought he was potentially going to be somebody who would push to go somewhere else. And I'm not sure whether I don't think it's in Will Levis's character to do that, and I don't think it's in Bryce Young's either. I mean, having interviewed Levis, check out the interview. Great segue, which is on the channel now. But yeah, I don't think it's in his character to say I'm not playing for you. And every time I listen to Bryce Young, I don't think it's in his character either. But Arch Manning, for example, given that Eli already done that, if Arch Manning ends up being what everybody thinks Arch Manning's going to be, could he be in that kind of a situation? What about the guy at USC right now, who's been, as soon as he came in at Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, is he, in a year or two, is he going to say, no, I'm not going to Houston, I'm not going to a Detroit Lions, I want to go somewhere where I can make a big success of this. I want to go to the Giants. I want to go somewhere, big market, big name team, make a load of more money. It really could happen. It really could happen. And you look at it now. Detroit are picking first overall. I mean, maybe because of what happened with Hard Knocks and all of that, people will be prepared to go there. I'm not sure, but the Texans are a car crash. Why would anyone want to go there? Carolina Panthers. I mean, right. Maybe we look at them a little bit differently today because they've beaten the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and all of a sudden, Brian Burns is making a play, and you can, they've got Derek Brown and they've got DJ Moore and they've got JC Horn. There's some players you can build around there, but that's a franchise that you go there, and I don't know, as a top quarterback, are you excited by that? And then you're looking at where you could end up, and it could be maybe like the Seahawks, for example, who are competing and playing well. I've got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I don't know. I don't know how attractive the Seahawks would be in that situation. Maybe I'm looking at it through me navy blue and neon green tinted sunglasses there. I'm not sure, but I think it's an interesting topic with that. I wonder what's going to happen with Bryce Young though, because he's got a shoulder injury. He is a legit 5'10", 190 pounds, 185 pounds. He has not got the arm strength of the other quarterbacks, and I genuinely wonder what's going to happen with him, Robbie. I'm not because he's very creative. He's extremely talented, but he's a hard player to project based on the transferable skills. Which you watch him and you think, yeah, this is great, and the scrambling's great. Can he take a pound in? Can he drive the ball downfield? I wonder where he's actually going to go in the draft, frankly.
Yeah, I think that'll be an interesting point. Just to circle back to kind of what you guys were talking about prior, though. I mean, we've seen it happen. We've seen Eli Manning say straight up, not going to this team, and force their hand to make the trade to the Giants. I mean, these things happen rarely. If I could be wrong, maybe someone on the super chat, correct me if I'm wrong here, but John Elway did the same thing, I believe, and forced him to Denver. So, I mean, there are times where players, kind of say like, I'm just not going to go there, and they leak it through their agent to tell the team they don't want to go there. And maybe it happens more than we actually hear about it. And maybe sometimes we're like, why didn't they draft this guy? Maybe it's because they literally don't want to play for you. Like maybe there was just a connection there that they didn't like. I don't know. But that's interesting. I do think that's an interesting point to bring up with some of these guys. As far as Bryce Young goes, I know I don't want him in Seattle. I just don't want a small tweener quarterback again, someone who can't see over the line very well. And I do worry about his size. I mean, and it's nothing against his talent. He's very talented. For me, I want a big quarterback. I want someone that can see over the line, that can make all the throws. And I want a Josh Allen type. That's the kind of quarterback I want. I mean, I'm sure most people want that kind of quarterback, but this is what I want. I just don't want, I wouldn't want Kyler Murray on my team. I don't these are not players that I find that are going to be, they're just not that interesting. And we've seen it with Russ for 10 years, and I'm ready to move on past that, and do something different. So for me, I'm not sure how the draft plays out for him. I'm thinking a team will take a chance on him because he has a lot of those intangibles. He has a lot of upside, but I just don't know.
I mean, I've just watched Kenny Pickett throw a duck right over the top and get intercepted. And it just reminds me that I want the Seahawks to go for special. I want the next Seahawks quarterback to have special qualities so that you can really believe that they can be a massive difference maker at the next level. That's just what I want. I want size, arm, improv, execution. I want the whole package. I want it all. I want it all. I want a high pick on a top quarterback, and there are, a few guys in this draft that fit that bill. But if not, if they do decide that they're going to wait on that position for whatever reason, can't draft in the range to get them, or they don't personally feel that, and now if Anthony Richardson doesn't declare and stuff like that, then we will pivot. And I'm seeing people already asking me about Michael Penix again. The Washington has won a couple of games, so we're back on Michael Penix again now. We will see. A lot more talk about him and other quarterbacks in the article in the week. If you've got any final super chats, send them in. Just to cap things off here, we're going to be wrapping up in a couple of minutes' time. But just a final thought from both of you. Adam, I'll start with you. As we sit here with the Seahawks with a winning record, a 4-3 record, and again, that was a really good win. And nobody would have had the Seahawks beating the Chargers that convincingly at the start of the season.
Well, that's exactly it. And when I was talking earlier about the playoffs, and ultimately, there's only so many ways you can denigrate your own wins before you have to start accepting that what you're seeing is the real deal. And with the lack of quality in the NFC right now, I don't know, let's be dreamers for a little bit. I think we probably went into the season thinking, well, Tampa and Green Bay are going to be leagues ahead because of their quarterback situation. I don't think either of their quarterback is particularly happy with the decision they made in the offseason to continue playing at their team. By the way they look at the moment, Brady particularly looks like a guy that can't wait for the season to end, and Rodgers is a weird bloke anyway, but he doesn't look happy. And if someone said to you at the start of the season, Green Bay and Tampa aren't going to be great, and the Rams are going to stutter, you would have said, well, who's going to be good in the NFC then? And I kind of feel that's where we are. So with Robbie's get to the dance, you have a chance situation. Get to the dance. Maybe we'll have a few nice evenings in January to chop it up, which would be tremendous fun.
I remember those.
They're great. They're great fun.
The other thing is, someone was saying that someone sent a tweet into the broadcast I was doing earlier saying, the Vikings. I think the Vikings look like crap. Like, I know they're 5-1, but I've not been impressed with them in any of the game. I've seen a couple of their games. I was just not excited by them.
You wouldn't wake up in the morning of a game against the Vikings in the playoffs and be nervous about that evening. Let's be honest.
No.
And there's the number of teams in the NFC that would give you that emotion are dwindling by the week, I would say.
Unless maybe you're playing in Minnesota in the winter. That kind of sucks. We've seen that before.
It's a dome now. It's a dome now, though, isn't it? So it's not going to be that horrible Gopher Stadium, whatever it was.
Yeah. That's right. You're right.
It is a dome. Kirk Cousins in prime time is not going to scare anybody, is it? I mean, his record speaks for itself in that regard. Robbie, before I come to you for your final thought, Jason has sent in a super chat. Thank you, Jason. And he says, Rob, team black or team green? Do either of you two watch House of the Dragon or no? Oh, you do, Robbie. So you know what that means.
Yep.
Robbie, who are you on? Team black or team green?
I'm going to go team black.
Yeah, black for me.
Yeah.
Matt Smith, what an absolute legend. What an actor. I'm team black. I'm very much looking forward to, because I have to watch it the day after because it's too late. It's probably on now, actually. It's probably on in the next hour, isn't it? Live.
I'll
so
be
I have to avoid. I have to avoid. It's the season finale tomorrow, Adam. So I have to avoid all spoilers for a day, and then watch it tomorrow. So Robbie, final thought.
I would ever hear you say that something was too late, Rob.
I know.
I didn't think that was possible for you.
And to be fair, when I get home, I'll be tempted to watch it. I will be tempted to watch it. I don't have to be up early in the morning tomorrow, so I will be tempted. But alas, my wife would kill me if I watched it without her. So I'm not going to watch that. So, Robbie, final thought on the 4-3 Seahawks after what was a really enjoyable win today.
Yeah, absolutely enjoyable win. For me, there's a couple things we just didn't get a chance to talk about, and I want to give just a quick shout out. Marquise Goodwin had a great game, 4 catches, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think he looked great today. Maybe he could be our answer at number 3. Maybe that's a little too early to write that, but hey, it's exciting to have somebody else catch the ball and look really good. Tight ends looked fantastic today as well. And then, of course, the coming out party for Kenneth Walker. The third, 23 carries, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm stoked, man. I'm stoked about this guy. I'm stoked about our young guys, and I'm just looking forward to seeing him continue to progress.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Marquise Goodwin, because we've kind of gone the whole hour without mentioning him, and he warranted a mention. That was a really good game from him. Some nice touchdowns in the game there. So there we go. Thank you to Adam and to Robbie, and look, some great numbers on the live viewing tonight. Live chat, very vibrant as well. Thank you for all of the super chats. You can do a super, what is it called? A super, I can't remember what it's called now. It's a heart button under the video. Super thanks, that's it. If you want to do one of those and you're not watching live, you can do that as well. But appreciate all of your support. SeahawksDraftBlog.com for more analysis. We'll be back very soon. Don't forget to like the video and to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye for now.